I'll talk about Disney in a separate video, so let's get straight into the data as well as the charts. Then we'll take a look at my results for the day and my thoughts going into tomorrow's session. If you like trading stocks and options and making money, definitely like and subscribe. I make videos like this every single day that the markets are open as well as Sundays, so make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Welcome to the Portfolio Bulletin. Let's get started. Starting off with fear and greed, you can see we're up to a 75 from a 73. We continue to trend up into the same area. We've dipped down a couple of times, but we've had no follow through. Markets have remained strong. You can see this most recent dip to 63, rallied right back to 75. So still holding pretty well. And we saw another perk up today, a breakout actually. Extreme greed on market momentum, strength, still holding in greed. Breadth continuing to taper lower and lower. We'll take a look at that on the bigger charts later as well. And then looking at the put call ratio, still in extreme greed. We'll look at that also. Volatility neutral, still hovering back in this same range from yesterday. And then safe haven demand, extreme greed, junk bond demand, still in greed. This did hit extreme greed just for a moment, and then it's pulled back to greed, which is interesting. So far, everything's still very, very bullish across markets, and it's hard to be a contrarian when we just continue to go straight up every single day. Moving over to seasonality, this continues to be pretty accurate actually for February. It was not great for January, but so far for February, it's been quite good. Got another perk up today for the NASDAQ. That was expected. Russell was down slightly. That was expected. We did see the S&Ps do pretty well, which was not expected. So that's divergent there between actual markets and the market forecast. So that's interesting. But right now, NASDAQ on track, Russell pretty much on track. So seems to be a pretty good indicator. And we are looking for more bullishness from the NASDAQ to come. And then just as a quick reminder, we are still bullish all the way up until options expiration. And then after President's Day, it is a little bit more bearish into the end of the month. Moving over to earnings, we continue to see pretty strong earnings. Disney beating on the bottom line, missed a little bit on the top line. I'll do a separate video for Disney. I might do one here for Uber. We'll see. I need to put out a little bit more content, so let me know down in the comments what you would like to see in terms of earnings. I think Disney and Uber probably make the most sense, but right now still lots of green from the biggest companies. A little bit of red further down, not super interesting. And then looking at tomorrow, don't forget AstraZeneca, ConocoPhillips, Duke Energy, a little bit of energy names in there. But overall, not really much that's going to push around markets. I'm still interested in energy, so I'll be watching those in the pre-market tomorrow. Moving over to the economic calendar, you can see that 10-year note auction did come at a little bit higher than the previous read. Not quite at 4.1. That is what I was thinking it would come in at, but very, very close, so that's good. I continue to expect the 10-year to go higher. And then looking at tomorrow's data, nothing major. 30-year note auction, Fed balance sheet, continuing to watch that one. Initial jobless claims continues to be interesting. Previous read was 224, which has trended up slightly, but not majorly. And then it is expected to trend down a little bit tomorrow. Overall, nothing major on the economic data. Moving over to Max Payne, I have been sounding the alarm here at this 493 call wall. We've seen a lot of puts enter the market, which does help the bullish thesis. I usually look at this as a contrarian metric, and that does support the bullish thesis. You can see puts are getting a little bit closer to that call wall. We are way above it, 498. So we're all the way up at the top of the puts already, which would indicate we're kind of topped out for the week. That can obviously drift tomorrow as we get closer to that Friday session. 515, definitely the top. No expectations of getting anywhere near that for this week. And it wouldn't even really surprise me if we did see a little bit of a dip back down below that 493 for the close on Friday. Doesn't mean we can't go a little bit higher tomorrow and then pull back on Friday, but definitely something to keep an eye on. Moving over to the charts, we did see another really strong rally. We saw a little bit of a grind higher and a strong close yesterday. Went sideways after hours and then pre-market and then rallied super aggressively early in the session and then kind of stalled out mid-session. So trend still bullish, momentum fading a little bit on the hourly. We're definitely overbought in the shorter time frames. And then looking at the daily chart, you can still see a strong trend. We're right at that longer term resistance. You can see this marked the top here in July. Then it marks some other price action here going back to September of 22 as well as June of 22. Let's go full size on that so you can see that is a very important trend line. I do think this is an area where we can find some resistance. It'll be interesting to see if we can overthrow it. If we do, there's not a ton of upside. You can see the shorter term trend midpoint does put us up to that 499.15, 500 area. So absolutely could get into that zone. Momentum bullish, RSI bullish. Once again, you can see we broke this divergence I was watching. So everything's back to bullish. despite the sideways price action that we saw, and that's how you have to continue to trade these markets. Moving over to the NASDAQ, similar thesis. We were rallying up into the end of the session yesterday and basically continued that same exact trend. Broke out well above 429.60, and then you can see we pushed all the way up to 432.50. So it continues on this strong push. These are all-time highs for the close. It continues to be momentum bullish. RSI pushing back towards overbought conditions. The trend still intact. Upper resistance for that trend would be up around 439. I'm not sure we can get that high. 438.55 certainly possible. Right now that is resistance, so absolutely keep that in mind. Everything on the structure still says very bullish. Moving over to the Russell and the Dow. The Russell was actually down on the day. I kind of expected that. We hit this trend line and it does look a little bit more interesting than I would have guessed. You can see we kind of grinded right along that trend line and we're still above it technically. I thought we would reject and then push back down to that 191.89 level, potentially even break down to this lower trend line around 189. So that could have been interesting. But right now we're still holding above it, which is still a little bit interesting. If it holds VWAP down at 192.59, which we are a little bit above it right now, that could be a potential area for a bounce, push back up to 195. Right now it's not doing it. We did wick all the way up to 194.65 on that initial push in the pre-market, and then we gave all of that back. So still consolidation. The Russell has been holding in this zone for a while. You can see we got into this area early in January and we've kind of chopped sideways. Right now, this still looks a little bit bearish to me. And then looking at the Dow, this continues to be bullish. Rallied yesterday, rallied again today. Did almost all of the move in that first candle of the day and then sideways chop on the second one, throwing some wicks. Almost hit my level at 387.77, didn't quite do it. Momentum bullish. RSI still slightly bullish. It is tapering down, but it's above the 50 line and above the SMA, so continues to grind higher. Moving over to Apple and Tesla. Apple was quite weak on the day. You can see we rallied up, hit that 200 SMA, got all the way up to around 191 and then rejected back into this range around 189, and we're still in that range. This looks quite bearish to me, to be honest. Big wick rejection, got below the 21, grinding along it. If this breaks down here, then you have some support down around that 188.12 area with the 144 and 55 EMAs. And then if that breaks, 186.81. And then you got trend support all the way down at 183.76. So right now this looks bearish. We rallied up aggressively, finding some resistance, and I would expect it to go lower. And then moving over to Tesla, this actually looks a little bit more bullish. The structure is still bearish, so understand that. But you can see we had a clear lower low with a higher RSI read. We rallied up yesterday. We continued that rally here today. We started to throw some wicks, and we're not above the 55 EMA yet, but we are above the 21, so that gives you something to trade off of at 185.33. We hit the level 188.55, found a little bit of rejection there. Momentum bullish, RSI slightly bullish. So pretty tight stop, only about $2 lower. But if it holds at 21, then you can be looking for a push up to 197.75. So pretty decent opportunity there, especially on a very beaten down stock, finding a little bit of strength. Moving over to NVDA and Broadcom to follow up on yesterday's video. Showed a little bit of weakness yesterday on NVIDIA, held that trend line and then bounced from it, held this trend line as well. Got another new high close above $700, and it is rallying after hours up to 703.45. NVIDIA just continues to be a massive gainer, continues to go higher seemingly every day. Obviously, yesterday it was down a little bit, but then it engulfed that candle and went even higher. Broadcom continues to hover just under resistance. Did show a bullish candle, but not quite as bullish. Didn't engulf yesterday's candle, didn't get to resistance, and this is not an all-time high. It is very close, but just a little bit off of it. Momentum, slightly bearish. RSI, bullish, but below the SMA, so waiting to see if you can get a little bit of a break. It's already very high, so the opportunity would not be great. But it does seem like semiconductors are the hot sector, and it seems like there could be some opportunity if you get a break of 1288. Moving over to Amazon and Meta. These stocks had 2 days of downward price action after their massive earnings moves. They kind of hovered in the same area, and then today they showed some more life. So Amazon up 0.82, Meta 3.27, very strong move there. Got just above my trend line. These are all-time highs here for Meta, so that's why there's no levels really to work off of. And then looking at Amazon, not quite all-time highs. Your next resistance would be 174.23. And then you can see I only have 2 more levels to the upside because we are very close to those all-time highs. So just keep that in mind. 174.23, Meta, no real price targets. just continues to look strong off the back of earnings. Moving over to staples and discretionaries, staples pulled back today, 0.09%, gapped higher, got above 74 and then rejected, ended up finishing lower. You can see it's down a little bit after hours, not great there, momentum selling off. So this is interesting. Structure still bullish, so keep that in mind, but we continue to show a little bit of weakness at that 74 level. And then looking at discretionaries just for a moment, you can see we gapped up, hit that short-term resistance. We'll see if that area holds or not. Above it, I have 180.10, so we'll look for a breakout tomorrow. Like I said, if that area breaks, 180.10, and then you have this shorter term top at 181.83, and then above that 185.36. So momentum ticking back towards bullish. This does look pretty exciting. We were in this downtrend, we broke that, we found some support at the 21, we're rallying up. So discretionary is showing some strength, potential opportunity here for some breakouts. Moving over to energy and oil and gas. Oil and gas did exactly what I thought that it might, hit that 21 EMA down at 130.60. It was rolling over on momentum, but it ended up holding and rallying up, hit the 55. If that breaks, I'm looking for a clear move up to that 135 level. So oil and gas looking pretty decent. Energy still looks pretty choppy, honestly. It is rallying up. It did hold the 21 EMA test on Monday, and then it's holding in this zone. So that does look a little bit better than it was here previously. And it is above my level at 83.55. Next one, 84.55, and then potentially looking for 87.37. But right now, this looks a little bit more choppy. Oil and gas looks like a better opportunity, to be honest. Moving over to transports and industrials, we'll continue to talk about these as they continue to go higher. Talked about the breakout yesterday, got another update, 0.5%. Almost hit the trend line, didn't quite get there. I would expect it to, so that's up around 172.93, about another $2 higher. So transports breaking out, looking strong. Industrials are at all-time highs, so this has been strong for a while. We gapped higher and rallied another 0.66%. Trend resistance for me up around 117.91, and I would expect it to get into that range. Moving over to the 20 and 50-day averages here for breadth. Starting off with the 20, we did get a slight up day, momentum coming in there, so that's a little bit bullish. We're right at the 50 line, so RSI not giving us much of anything. Still continues to hover in this zone below the 9 EMA, above the 21, above the 144, so really choppy price action. I've been doing this for a little bit now. And then looking at the 50-day average, similar doji right at the level, 62.25. We are just above it by a few fractions of a point. And then momentum bearish, RSI bearish. So we'll see how this continues to play out. No new information today. Moving over to the 2-year and the 10-year yield, you can see we did get a slight pop on the day. 10-year got into that 55 EMA, almost the 21, and held. So that's still looking a little bit bullish. Didn't get above the 200 SMA, so that's a little bit less bullish, but we did hold these EMAs. Want to see it get above there and rally if it's going to do it. And then looking at the 2-year, still hovering right below that 55 EMA. You can see it's selling off a little bit on Thursday's candle. I would expect it to kind of hold in this same zone, if not break a little bit lower. And then for the 10-year, expecting that to kind of push higher over the next few days. Moving over to the put call ratio, you can see we did get back into that mid-range after throwing a wick down. Yesterday, we were pretty low, around 0.7, didn't quite get to my 0.63 level. Back into the middle of the range, which is interesting. I would have expected another wick low, considering how bullish we were with markets today, but we didn't see that, so no major information here on the put call ratio. Once we start to see some spikes into this level, that could be a topping formation, but we're just not seeing that yet. Moving over to the dollar, absolutely nothing here. Just continued a slight downtrend, sideways choppy price action, 0.08%. Held that 144 EMA, so we did touch that, and then it did bounce a little bit from that level. You can see those wicks down here early in the session around that 0809. Momentum faded a little bit on the day. RSI slightly bullish above the SMA, but not giving us new information. It needs to hold here if it's going to do it. So that 144 EMA is the important level right now, 103.96. Need to see that hold if the dollar is going to go higher. If that breaks, then we could see a push back below 103.64 and potentially down into that 55 EMA around 103. And if that happens, I would expect equities to go higher. Moving over to bonds, J&K gapped higher, slightly bullish on the day, still in the middle of this range, nothing new there. Momentum did tick back towards bullish a little bit, which is interesting. And then looking at TLT, this did hit that 21 EMA and then reject, so that was slightly bearish on the day, 0.48. I talked about it yesterday. This still is a bearish thesis for me. Momentum momentum ticked back into bearish territory, RSI breaking down. I still think this is quite bearish on bonds. Moving over to volatility, both of these continue to trend down here today. So that makes sense with markets going higher. We almost got to 1275, looking back to that 1230, 1240 area back at these previous lows. You would expect to get there at this point. Momentum bearish, RSI bearish. Even the move index was falling a little bit today. So volatility coming out of markets as we move higher. Moving over to my accounts, I made money on the day as markets went up. You can see this IWM position continues to hang in there. Plenty of protection on this covered call at 189. So made some money there. It is still in a little bit of a loser, but right in this zone makes sense for me. My max profit here is still up around 195 and some change. So right in this zone, I should collect a little bit of money on the call and then potentially be able to roll this out if I need to. So hovering in here is fine, no issues there. And you can see it's actually down a little bit after hours. So not a big concern. And then Q's position still holding this, still tons of protection. Max profit on this position up around 436. So that gives me another $4 or so of potential upside to that max profit. That is for a while from now, 50 days still. And then looking at the TQQQs, I actually did roll this out here today, push that out to 56 for $3.30 credit. So that puts the max profit there at $59.30. And then I did sell a call here, cash secured for $57.50 for 50 cents, made a little bit of money there. So profit across the board on this TQQQ's position as we continue to go higher. Let me know down in the comment section what you think of the charts or the markets continuing to go higher. Can we just keep doing this every day? And how much higher will this breakout go? Definitely like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video, and make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.